Somewhere in Auburn Hills, Michigan, a decision has already been made. Not announced, not debated in public, made. And according to internal documents obtained by sources inside Stellantis's North American Operations Division, that decision involves one of the most iconic nameplates in American truck history, the Ram. What the leaked memo reveals is not a refresh, not a redesign. It is a systematic plan to hollow out the Ram brand from the inside, replace its core identity with a cheaper, more profitable architecture, and leave the buyers who finance these trucks at $70, $80, sometimes $90,000, holding a vehicle that will be worth half that within 36 months. If you own a Ram 1500, a Ram 2500, or a Ram Heavy Duty, what you are about to hear directly affects your wallet, your warranty, and your next trade-in. Stay until the end, because the final piece of this story is the one Stellantis is most desperate to keep quiet. To understand why this is happening now, you need to understand the financial condition of the company that owns Ram. Stellantis reported a net revenue decline of 14% in the first half of 2024, dropping from 98.4 billion euros to 85 billion. North American margins, which had been the strongest in the company's portfolio, collapsed by more than half in a single year. Carlos Tavares, the CEO, whose documented strategy centers on cutting vehicle platforms and sharing components across brands to reduce costs, responded to that collapse not by investing in product quality, but by accelerating the consolidation plan that sources say was already drafted. According to the documents reviewed for this report, that consolidation plan targets the Ram truck line specifically because it is the most expensive platform to maintain independently and the most resistant to the kind of cost sharing that Tavares has already applied to Jeep and Chrysler. In other words, Ram survived the first round of cuts because it was profitable. Now that profits have fallen, it is next. Here is what the leaked memo outlines. The plan has 3 phases. Phase 1, which according to the documents began in the third quarter of 2023, involved quietly reducing the number of independent engineers assigned to Ram-specific powertrain development. Not eliminating positions publicly, but reassigning them to a shared platform team that serves Ram, Jeep, and Fiat simultaneously. The practical result is that Ram no longer has a dedicated engineering team working exclusively on its trucks. The people who understood the 6.4 Hemi, the 6.7 Cummins, and the e-torque hybrid system at a component level are now splitting their attention across 3 brands and 4 platforms. Owners in the NHTSA complaint database are already experiencing the downstream effects of this. As of early 2025, NHTSA has logged over 4,400 complaints against the 2019 through 2024 Ram 1500 for powertrain-related issues, including transmission shudder, unexpected downshifts, and engine stall events at highway speed. 4,400 complaints. That is not a rounding error. That is a pattern. Phase 2 of the memo is where the Ram identity begins to disappear in a way that is visible to buyers. The plan calls for migrating the Ram 1500 to a modified version of the STLA frame platform, which is the same architecture underpinning future Jeep and Alfa Romeo products. The justification of the document is cost reduction per unit, estimated at between $2,800 and $3,400 per truck. What the memo does not prominently feature is what that migration costs the buyer. The STLA frame was not designed around the towing and payload demands of a 3/4 ton or half-ton work truck. It was designed as a flexible, multi-brand architecture intended to support electrification across a range of vehicle sizes. Adapting it to Ram specifications requires engineering compromises, and according to sources familiar with the internal testing data, the current adaptation scores lower on-frame rigidity under tow load than the existing Ram body-on-frame architecture that owners have been buying for the last decade. In plain language, the new Ram, built on a platform designed to save Stellantis $3,000 per truck, is projected to be less capable at the job Ram buyers actually need it to do. And if you want more investigations like this, the kind that take hundreds of hours of document review, NHTSA database analysis, and source verification, subscribe to Motor Crisis Watch right now. We publish a new investigation every week, and what is coming next makes this one look mild. Phase 3 is the one that should alarm Ram owners most directly, because it does not involve future trucks. It involves the trucks already in driveways across the country right now. The memo, dated internally to the fourth quarter of 2024, references a parts rationalization initiative across all Stellantis North American platforms. Parts rationalization is corporate language for reducing the number of unique components that must be manufactured and stocked. Applied to an active vehicle lineup, it means that replacement parts for current Ram models will increasingly be sourced from shared suppliers serving multiple brands, with tolerances and specifications adjusted to fit the broadest possible range of applications rather than the specific demands of the Ram platform. Mechanics who work on these trucks are already seeing the early signs. Forum members on ram1500forum.com and ramtruckforum.com have documented cases where warranty replacement parts installed at dealerships between 2023 and 2025 carry different part numbers than the originals and exhibit measurable differences in fit and finish. This is not anecdotal. It is consistent with a part substitution pattern documented in 3 separate class action filings in federal court, including a consolidated complaint filed in the District of New Jersey in late 2024, alleging that Stellantis substituted non-original specification components during warranty repairs without disclosure to the vehicle owner. That case is currently proceeding through discovery. What does this mean for the Ram buyer sitting on an 84-month loan right now? It means 3 things, and none of them are comfortable. First, the truck you bought, based on the Ram reputation, built on decades of Cummins diesel reliability and Hemi V8 endurance, is already being serviced with parts that were not designed to that same specification. Second, the next generation of Ram trucks will share its bones with vehicles that were never intended to tow 35,000 pounds or haul a contractor bed full of materials 6 days a week. Third, and this is the part that the dealership will not explain to you when your warranty expires, the resale value of current Ram trucks is tied to a brand identity that Stellantis is actively dismantling. When the market figures out what the new Ram actually is, which is a shared platform vehicle wearing Ram badges, the premium that Ram has historically commanded over comparable GM and Ford trucks will compress. Trucks that owners paid $80,000 for in 2022 and 2023 are already showing steeper depreciation curves than the equivalent F-150 or Silverado. According to Black Book valuation data from the first quarter of 2025, that curve does not reverse when the next generation arrives on a cheaper platform. There is a broader context here that explains why Stellantis can execute this plan with relatively low risk of immediate public backlash. The Ram brand has been so successfully marketed over the past 15 years through the Built to Serve campaign, through the association with Cummins, through the visual identity of the heavy-duty trucks, that genuinely were among the best work platforms in their class, that the brand equity runs deep. Buyers trust the badge. They trust it enough to finance trucks at interest rates above 8% for 7 years. That trust is the asset Stellantis is spending down, not investing in, spending. Every truck sold on brand equity that was built by a previous engineering team under a previous cost structure that no longer exists is a transaction where Stellantis collects the premium without delivering the product that earned the premium. Consumer Reports reliability data for the 2022 and 2023 Ram 1500 already reflects this. Both model years rank below average for predicted reliability, with powertrain and electrical system concerns cited as primary drivers. The 2021 Ram 1500 scored similarly. 3 consecutive years of below-average reliability scores on a truck whose price has increased by an average of 18% over the same period. That is not a coincidence. That is the math of a company extracting margin from a brand while reducing investment in the product. The Cummins relationship, which has been central to Ram's identity in the heavy-duty segment, is also under documented stress. Cummins Inc. disclosed in its own regulatory filings that it is managing a transition away from traditional diesel applications under pressure from emissions mandates in multiple markets, and that its relationship with Stellantis for the 6.7-liter diesel application is subject to ongoing renegotiation. Separately, NHTSA recall number 24V409, issued in mid-2024, covers approximately 93,000 Ram 2,500 and 3,500 trucks equipped with a 6.7 Cummins for a fuel system defect that can cause engine stall without warning. 93,000 trucks. The owners who depend on those trucks for their livelihood, contractors, ranchers, fleet operators, received a letter telling them to bring the vehicle in for repair that, according to complaint data, in some cases required 3 or more dealer visits to resolve. That is the product reality underneath the marketing. This is the kind of investigation no dealership wants you to see. Because the moment you walk onto a Ram lot, knowing what is in that memo, the conversation changes. The finance manager cannot sell you on the legacy of the Cummins when you know that legacy is being phased out under a parts rationalization initiative. The salesperson cannot justify the price premium when you know the next generation is moving to a platform shared with vehicles that weigh half as much and tow a quarter as much. The knowledge in this video is not opinion. It is documented in NHTSA complaint databases, in federal court filings, in Stellantis' own financial disclosures, and in internal documents that sources inside the company risk their positions to share. The Ram brand is not being killed loudly. It is being killed quietly through engineering, consolidation, parts, substitution, and platform migration that will only become fully visible to buyers when the next generation arrives in showrooms and the trade-in values on current trucks tell the real story. Subscribe to Motor Crisis Watch, because next week we are going inside the Ford F-150 warranty data that dealers have been instructed not to discuss with customers. Share this video with anyone you know who owns a Ram or who is considering buying one. What they do not know about this plan could cost them tens of thousands of dollars. Their truck and their financial decision deserves the truth.